Start slowly introducing Professor Kucharski, and Professor Kucharski, as far as I understand, will be speaking for two speakers. So Kucharski from Ignatianum will be speaking both for himself and for Professor Duchliński, and they will be discussing the issues of relationship between Christian ethics and naturalism. They spent quite a lot of time on that. They work together in our institution on the Center of Christian Ethics and try to promote this ethics also practically, also through teaching this ethics to teachers. It's quite important so that they can become teachers in high schools, and so that ethics finally come back to our high schools and students have a choice.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am presenting this alone, but my dear friend, Professor Duchliński, is present here, and I hope he will support me during the discussion. Our topic is how to practice Christian ethics in the 21st century, mainly in coping with naturalism. In our presentation, we would like to reflect on this issue, because we believe that contemporary Christian ethics requires a fundamental reflection which should be inspired by contemporary scientific discoveries and new scientific theories as well. When we say science, we primarily mean the natural science, but also the social science and the humanities. So we are trying to understand this term very wide. As we are well aware, we live in a culture that is largely shaped by the scientific world view. And what does it precisely mean? It is not easy to define, but we can assume that this worldview covers all the key research accomplishments of different contemporary sciences, such as physics, biology, and cosmology. Science tells us what the universe is like, how it was evolved over millions of years, and what natural laws govern it. When we talk about this worldview, we do not only mean that it is shaped by the natural sciences, but also that it is considerably shaped by the social sciences and the humanities. The cognitive sciences, which deal with the brain and the cognitive processes, play a huge role in shaping this worldview. We can even say that it is the social science and the humanities that greatly influence how this worldview is understood today. Ethics is a part of culture, and everything that happens in culture, all the transformations that take place in it, profoundly influence ethics, both in the way it is understood and the way in which it is practiced. This is why we believe that we cannot practice Christian ethics without some reflections on the scientific worldview. What we mean by this is that we should ask how to practice Christian ethics today, taking into account the scientific worldview. By Christian ethics, we understand the branch of philosophy that deals with normative evaluation of human action. Christian ethics draw various inspirations for the Christian traditions and elaborates them using philosophical tools. From the historical perspective, Christian ethics has been practiced in many different ways. The origins of Christian ethics date back to the final period of antiquity, and it developed in the Middle Ages. Unsurprisingly, Christian ethics carries the legacy of these eras in the worldview. It has assimilated. This fusion of Christian ethics with the ancient and medieval worldviews was, of course, historically justified. When this ethics was formed, the dominant cultural worldview was the one that was shaped by declining ancient philosophy. However, as history reveals, this attachment to the ancient worldview meant that Christian ethics was unable to adapt the contemporary science worldview. This problem was exacerbated in the modern period. Even today, many Christian ethicists uphold this ancient worldview as the basis for formulating moral judgments. We think that we can use the phrase that has been formulated in contemporary philosophy of science. This phrase is research tradition. So we can say that Christian ethics is a research tradition within which theoretical and practical problems are formulated and solved. Various models for practicing Christian ethics have been developed within it. In our presentation, we would like to focus on two of them. First model is described in publications of a great many Christian ethicists, while the second model is our original proposal. What we are going to describe is only a proposal, which of course required further reflection and elaboration. Therefore, we will not dare to draw any definitive conclusions. Let's now turn to the models. We call the first model of practicing Christian ethics the autonomous model. This model of practicing Christian ethics is widespread and generally accepted among Christian ethicists. The essence of this model of practicing ethics is the fundamental assumption that the ethics does not need to make use of the results of the sciences. This means that in their studies, ethicists do not refer to the findings of the natural, social, or human sciences. This model very clearly distinguishes ethics as a normative science from other sciences that deal with morality. These other sciences are descriptive in nature. In this perspective, it is assumed that ethics has its own autonomous starting point, its own research object, and most important here, its own research method. Ethics, understood in this way, is methodologically independent of other sciences, which are also concerned with the study of morality. Such a model of practicing Christian ethics is presented in the Thomist tradition. Such a model of practicing ethics is advocated by the supporters of the phenomenological approach, and such a model of practicing ethics is also upheld by many Polish Christian philosophers. This model of practicing ethics is based on the deeper assumption that philosophy and science are two separate dimensions. They do not meet almost at all. Why is such an opinion widespread? Because it is thought that philosophy deals with its own research problems, science deals with its own research problems, and there is nothing in common between them. In such a model of ethics, moral norms that determine human behavior are justified only by philosophical arguments. Ethicists from this model are concerned with the purity of their justifications, which means that scientific arguments cannot be mixed with philosophical arguments. In this model of autonomous practice of ethics, as observed by David Hume, it is emphasized that normative conclusions cannot be derived from empirical data. Thus, the autonomous model shows there is a gap between science and ethics that cannot be bridged by any analysis or reflection. However, there are ethicists who claim that it would be good for ethicists to become familiar with the latest state of research conducted in different moral sciences. But what exactly does it imply? It implies that it is enough for ethicists to be familiar with general scientific achievements and that they do not have to use them in their ethical reflection. Being aware of what research is being conducted as sufficient. Of course, this model of ethics has an advantage, but it also has problems in assimilating scientific knowledge and adapting to social and countercultural changes. Nor do these changes are always properly understood in this model. The autonomous model can, in its extreme form, develop into a concept which, following Richard Feynman's example, can be described as cargo cult ethics. Feynman distinguished several conditions that helps to identify the cargo cult in academical work, when the research is not giving all the information to help others to judge the value of our contribution, not just the information that leads to judgment is one particular in direction or another. Feynman noticed that it is very easy to fall into cargo cult science. The first step is to fool oneself. I am the easiest person to be fooled. After fooling oneself, in example, ignoring scientific data, concealed by such notions as autonomy or different methodological approach, the researcher is able to build quite congruent theoretical system like astrology, for example. People can even believe in it. But to be believed is not the point. The point is what does the theory says about the reality, in our case, the moral reality. Ignoring or even remaining autonomous from science means falling down or taking a few steps on the slippery slope into cargo cult ethics, fooling oneself and being dishonest about the actual reliability of presented claims. We can clearly show it when we consider such phenomena as emotions. Traditional Christian view, well, also rooted in antiquity and in Middle Ages, sees the structure of human being hierarchical, where there's reason, emotions, and some other emotions, right? And well, if we look like that on the human, we should be rational. And psychology of morality, cognitive science of morality shows us today that it is the emotions that make us moral. It is the emotions that allows us to behave in a more moral, proper way, to react morally on several situations in the world. If we really try to adopt this medieval or even earlier Platonic view, reason first, well, we clearly may become psychopaths instead of moral beings. So this is one of the challenges when we look at the traditional Christian ethics, how to adapt this contemporary concepts of emotions, theories of emotions, into theory of ethics. How to deal with it, with this reason and emotion tension. Okay, and well. Our second solution that we want to propose is ethics practiced in the context of science. We realize that this term is imprecise, but we want to introduce it here because we don't have a better one for now. Ethics practiced in the context of science is a model that competes with the autonomous model. It is based on an assumption that ethics cannot be reduced to any science of morality. It is not true that when ethics makes use of research conducted in the empirical sciences, it loses its methodological autonomy. We would like to make it clear that in advocating this model, we believe that ethics remains an autonomous science. And we also believe that when ethicists analyze various problems concerning morality, they should refer to scientific data and to reliable findings in the sciences, both natural or social, not only both, natural science, social science, humanities. But we have to not just be aware, we have to incorporate those data into our new theories, not just simply say we are autonomous or even more ignoring such some data. This model of ethics is a model open to different types of scientific knowledge. We are convicted that traditional Christian ethics was based on psychology of morality that actually had very little to do with psychology. It was rather rational psychology, that is philosophical theory of man instead of, let's say, academical or scientific theory of a human being. Many contemporary scholars argue that if we want to reflect responsibly on ethics, we must do so on the basis of the psychology of morality, I already mentioned it, which is based on reliable empirical research. We are also aware of such opinion and believe that contemporary Christian ethics should be practiced not on the basis of old rational psychology, in fact, a kind of anthropology, but on the basis of contemporary psychology of morality. Understanding human decision-making process, the participation of consciousness in decision-making, the issue of intention and freedom, all that phenomena require drawing on research that is well grounded in science. So, ethics practiced in the context of science is sensitive to what is happening in science and what is sensitive to different research finding that concerns the understanding of man. We believe that today, in the 21st century, empirical science such as psychology, sociology sometimes provide better insights into human nature than philosophy did in the past. Ethics used to depend solely on philosophy, which could be justified by the fact that empirical science were not as advanced as they are now. But today, when the empirical sciences tell us so much about morality, Christian ethics cannot neglect its knowledge. Empirical knowledge provided by the science is necessary for an adequate elevation of human action. Neuroethics provides us with very interesting information about the role of certain parts of the brain in making moral decisions. Also, research on free will shows that in ethics it is possible to adopt a compatibilist position that is one that combines determinism and indeterminism. In our opinion, the greatest challenge Christian ethicists face today is linked to neuroethics, primarily because neuroethics undermines many assumptions of the worldview in which Christian ethics was built. That is, it was already mentioned, the ancient and medieval worldviews. At the beginning of modern era, when the Great Revolution in the natural science took place, the medieval worldview was challenged by the founders of modern physics. While the Aristotelian worldview in its Thomistic interpretation was rejected in science, it has never been rejected in Christian ethics, which still upholds this ancient medieval worldview. Science is governed by the different laws than philosophy. Philosophers or ethicists do not always pay attention to what happens in science and, unfortunately, stick to worldviews that are outdated today. In our opinion, a revolution similar to that one that has taken place in modern science should also take place in Christian ethics. This revolution should entail replacing the ancient medieval worldview with the scientific worldview, and the scientific worldview should form the basis for making normative judgments of human actions. There is no doubt that changing a worldview requires a change in thinking and a generational change as well. A group of Christian ethicists must simply step aside and make room for a new generation of ethicists who will feel the need for change and the need to break with the old worldview. Of course, from a psychological perspective, changing a worldview is not easy, and it requires overcoming not just old theses, but also fears that can be grounded in us. Practicing Christian ethics in the context of scientific worldview is a challenge for the 21st century. In our opinion, this challenge can be met through interdisciplinary collaboration between Christian ethicists and scientists who provide detailed knowledge about morality. I'm finishing, okay? Practicing Christian ethics solely from a theoretical perspective makes little sense today. It can lead us to the cargo cult ethics. Ethics practiced a priori is not realistic ethics. The realism of ethics cannot be built on metaphysical speculation. That is why it will be valuable for ethicists to learn from sciences a sense of concreteness and openness to new theoretical perspectives that helps us better understand people in all their complexity. We are fully aware that for some defenders of the traditional approach in ethics, the above postulates are unacceptable. We also understand resistance and fear of change as they are natural reactions of our brains and which are accustomed to things very quickly, but had great difficulty in disaccustoming of certain images and perceptions. However, we believe that the younger generation of ethicists will make an effort to build a new Christian ethics that makes the scientific worldview their own. Thank you for your attention.
What is this picture? What is this? Huh? What is this?
Microphone.
No.
Excuse me, Peter, use microphone, please.
Okay, unicorns, yes, okay.
Show it to the camera.
Camera, okay, okay. Where exist unicorns? Where exist unicorns? In real world, in space, time, where? Where exist unicorns? Ladies and gentlemen.
In the world of senses.
The
reference world of our science.
Our mind. I think unicorns is intentional object. In my opinion, sometimes ethicists very often talk about unicorns. Unicorns. Huh? For ethicists, such unicorns is human nature. Ethicists talk about human natures in separation from what has been discovered in science. If ethics, in this case Christian ethics, continues to be separated from science, it will talk more about unicorns and not talk about real human nature. I think today better insight in the human nature give us science, not philosophy. Not philosophy. Yeah? Ethicists do not research, do not experiment, do not conduct interviews. Huh? Christian ethics, in my opinion, is dominated more by speculation rather than empirical research. If Christian ethics want to be an important voice in contemporary debate on morality, it must justify its thesis, especially in the field of anthropology on scientific knowledge. I think, I agree with my colleague, Professor Kucharski, many Christian ethics practice, not too bad, no, cult cargo. That is my comment for presentation. I think my opinion may be very controversial. Okay, and okay, thank you.